machine and nerve, and has its mind concluded. This one is but flesh and faith, and is the more deluded.
Hello, and welcome to another Baldur's Gate 3 build video. I wanted to do more with this intro and combat sequence, but man, do summons make combat take really long, which makes it really hard to make it into a good bit. Also, if anyone has a good free camera mod suggestion so I can have an easier time recording for these openings, that'd be great. But anyways, speaking of summons, this video we have my Death Knight build. This build is a melee Necromancer all about fighting alongside and tanking for your undead summons, all the while providing buffs and debuffs to allow your undead army to march over your foes. I won't lie, summons in this game are not that good on their own and tend to require a lot of work to make useful, especially if you're doing extra challenging playthroughs with lots of restrictions like I like to do. But I did manage to make this build work out well, and I'm generally pretty happy with how it plays and its general thematics for my own playthrough. So, with that out of the way, as always, we will be doing character creation and levels first, before I move on to the relevant items from throughout the game. So, let's jump over to character creation. Starting with character races, we have the standard set of races that are good for melee characters: half-orc, wood elf, half-wood elf, and Githyanki. Although, even though I do recommend these races, there is no particular race that is super important for this build, since we get all proficiencies through our classes and none of the racials are that essential to our gameplay. So, for the build, here it is. Starting at level 1 with our ability scores, I went with a stat spread like this. You may be wondering why I don't take any points in Charisma despite us starting as a Paladin. That's because we are only taking Paladin for the proficiencies Divine Smite, and because as a half caster, 2 points in Paladin and 10 caster levels gets us our level 6 spell slot at level 12, thus meaning we don't particularly need any Charisma. As for which Paladin subclass to go, I went with Oathbreaker since it's the most thematically fitting, and the Spiteful Suffering Oath spell can be useful early game. However, late game, this will fall off as we don't have any Charisma, so most enemies will just save this instead of falling victim to it. As for easy oath-breaking methods, here are the fastest or easiest methods to do. Pick whichever will be easiest for you in your current game and break that oath. At level 2, we get the aforementioned Divine Smite. This will help supplement our melee damage as our build is going to suffer from a lack of extra attack as time goes on. If you really want extra attack, see the alternate build options from later in this video. As for our fighting style, I would recommend either defense or protection, as we want to increase our tankiness and ability to peel for our summons. From level 3 onwards, we start speccing into Wizard. This gives us spell scribing, allowing us to add any scrolls up to the level of our highest spell slot to our permanent spell arsenal. At level 4, we go the Necromancy School subclass. This gets us the Grim Harvest passive, giving us some situational healing. Jumping forward 2 levels, at level 6 we get our first feat. For feat options, both here at level 6 as well as for our level 10 feat, 2 of these 4 feats are the ones I recommend. Because we are a Paladin, Savage Attacker is very good as it increases the overall damage of our Divine Smites. Heavy Armor Master can help reduce the amount of damage you take, though if you are going to go this feat, you should respec your ability scores to actually make use of the +1 strength this feat provides. Warcaster is good for helping maintain our spell concentration since we are going to be getting hit and taking damage often. And finally, Sentinel can help hold enemies in place for your summons, as well as allow you to strike enemies who make attacks towards your summons. And though I didn't list it here, the ASIs are also a good choice if you want to go those. At level 8, we get access to our main Necromancy passives. Animate Dead grants us access to the spell Animate Dead permanently. Additional Undead lets us summon an additional Undead with our Animate Dead spell, and Better Summons increases the HP and damage of all our Undead summons. Something I will mention here, since at level 8 we will be upcasting Animate Dead to summon the Skeleton Squad or Zombie Battalion, is that currently, at the time of recording this, there is a bug with Animate Dead where we cannot upcast Animate Dead to level 4. To work around this bug, simply select your level 4 spell slot, then choose Animate Dead, then select the undead of your choice, and finally click the level 4 spell slot again. And skipping ahead all the way to level 12 to finish off our build, since we don't gain anything other than spells at all these in-between levels, at level 12 we get the passive Inure to Undeath, granting us resistance to necrotic damage. Now, before I talk about some alternative builds, let me just give a few spell recommendations and why they are useful. Grease can prone enemies, making it easier for your summons to hit them. Additionally, the ghoul summons have the ability to feast on prone or sleeping enemies in order to deal additional damage, as well as heal for all the damage dealt to them. For that same reason, Glyph of Warding, specifically the sleep variant, can be very powerful. Slow is a crippling reduction to enemy stats, making it easier for your summons to deal damage and survive for longer against your opponents. Vampiric Touch can be extremely useful for in-combat recovery. And finally, Cloud Kill is one of the best spells in the game for this build. All undead summons are immune to poison damage, and if combined with either a poison-resistant elixir or the spell Protection from Poison, we have a high damage obscuring cloud we can fight in with our summons. So, as I've mentioned earlier, there are some alternate level paths for this build. Now, I did not personally play these builds through the whole game, so I can't say for sure how these play compared to the previous main build. But, starting with our first alternate build, we can replace our wizard levels with druid Circle of Swords levels. As for the pros and cons of this build gets more zombies due to its access to the auto-resurrecting spore zombies. These zombies are not particularly strong, but their presence on the battlefield can be a distraction for enemies, especially for those that lack AoE damage. In addition to the additional zombies, the Spores and Symbiotic Entity passive give us some additional damage and HP to play around in combat. Now for the cons, compared to the original build, we lack the great spell diversity compared to our wizard, as we lack spell scribing and thus don't have access to many powerful spells like counterspell, slow, etc. Additionally, while we do have more summons, our summons are weaker, as we do not get any scaling like our Necromancy School wizard does. For our second alternate build, we can drop the Paladin levels as well as 4 wizard levels to go Bard College of Swords. This build gets access to extra attack and the blade flourishes, giving us more melee diversity for our character. However, for downsides, this build must split its ability scores to add charisma, or else the 6 levels worth of spells you get from your bard levels are going to be near worthless. Additionally, with this level split, we lack heavy armor proficiency, as well as martial weapon proficiency. So, unless you are willing to play a race with the weapon proficiencies you want, and take the feat for heavy armor proficiency, you will have to make do without those. Additionally, while not really relevant to combat, in terms of roleplay thematics, this build doesn't particularly fit the RP idea of a Death Knight. And finally, our last alternate build option is to drop 3 levels of Wizard and pick up 3 Paladin levels. This also nets us extra attack, as well as some new Oath and regular spells that can be quite useful. If you want to be more of a melee fighter and less of a caster, this may be the choice for you. Our downsides are, similar to the Bard version, we either need to invest in Charisma or our Paladin spells will be kneecapped, and we cap our spells at level 5, with only 1 level 5 spell slot to make use of. So, with all those options out of the way, it's finally time to move on to items. This is your spoiler warning, as I will be discussing some minor spoilers regarding the item locations and how to acquire them. So if you don't want to be spoiled for any particular part of the game, you've been warned. So, for the items this time around, we'll be visiting various graves and graveyards all throughout Faerun as we make our way through the acts. So, starting out, we have assistants. Just like me, you should also collect assistants throughout your game. I recommend gnomes as they don't weigh too much, so you can carry them around in case you need an emergency assistant to summon off of. For weapons, Baldur Aluve is our premier weapon of choice as its Shriek ability also adds damage to our future summons that we don't have yet. The Warped Headband of Intellect can allow for stat redistribution if you want to commit to using it. The Haste Helm, Boots of Speed, Disintegrating Nightwalkers, Amulet of Misty Step, and Crusher's Ring can all assist in the mobility of our character. The Adamantine Splint Armor is the best heavy armor for most of the game. The Gloves of Heroism can provide some additional health when you decide to use your Oath spell. The Gloves of the Growling Underdog are good as we are a melee fighter and are often surrounded. The Pearl of Power Amulet is helpful for spell slot regeneration. The Ring of Protection provides added protection. And finally, though it is not an equipable item, the Necromancy of Thay is important to pick up and use here so we can unlock a powerful spell later in Act 3. Moving on to the Mountain Pass, there is no graveyard here, so this torture room will have to suffice. Here in the Mountain Pass, you want to pick up the Defender Flail, which is a weapon that also increases our AC. The Blood of Lathander, despite seeming counterintuitive to our build, does not actually hinder allied undead and thus is still useful. And finally, the Diadem of Arcane Synergy, Ring of Arcane Synergy, and Strange Conduit Ring all increase our damage output. In Act 2, the Darkfire Shortbow provides decent resistances as well as the haste spell. Shield of Devotion provides more HP and an additional spell slot. The Sentinel Shield increases our initiative. The Circle of Bones is very important as it provides all undead summons that we are near resistance to physical damage. This is very powerful for our build. The Helmet of Arcane Acuity is the best if we are favoring a more spellcasting oriented playstyle. The Cloak of Protection and Evasive Shoes both give us added defenses. The Dwarven Splint Mail and Reaper's Embrace are decent alternatives to the Adamantine Splint Mail. The Flawed Helldust Gauntlets and Dark Justiciar Gauntlets both increase our damage output. The Amulet of the Harpers gives us greater defenses. The Spellcrux Amulet can help us with spell slot management. The Ring of Free Action is good for avoiding CC. And finally, Killer's Sweetheart is always great on Paladins as it allows you to nuke an enemy with a crit Divine Smite. And finally, here in Act 3, for our best weapon, the Staff of Cherished Necromancy provides us with many free necromancy spells as we kill enemies. Additionally, this staff is bugged, making it even stronger, but even assuming this bug gets fixed, it's still the best option for our build. The Hellrider Longbow can increase our initiative. Viconia's Walking Fortress is the best shield in the game. The Cloak of Displacement is great on any character for avoiding damage. The Armor Persistence and Helldusk Armor both give us great AC and passive effects. The Ballast Armor, while it would require some slight respecking to have more dex, can be good with the skeleton summons as they do piercing damage. The Gauntlets of Hill Giant Strength and Amulet of Greater Health can allow for stat redistribution. The Boots of Persistence are great on any character. Same with the Face Semblance Amulet. The Cryptlord Ring gives us a free cast of Create Undead, which can be nice to have. And finally, the don't know, man. This word Codex can help us complete the Necromancy of Thay and unlock the spell Dance Macabre, letting us summon 4 more ghouls for free. Currently, it also lets Necromancy School Wizards summon 5 ghouls instead of 4, but it remains to be seen if that's intended or a bug. And that's everything. Thanks for watching as always. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see... Hey, did you guys hear something?
Return the slab, or suffer my curse.